Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Virtual CrossWalk. I hope this finds you safe and well. We've got a good one for you today, a song or two, a meditation that I think will bring you some peace and some hope and help in your relationships, and then a teaching, which is, I think, very apropos to the time that we're living in. So let's get right to it. Thanks for tuning in.
There are no streets to walk on, no maps you can rely on, faith and guts to guide you, wander till you find you, only raw desire, no match to give you fire, you'll have to trust your heart. They don't believe in oceans, you were a sailor, burned your ship and walked on, far away you walked on, you keep turning inland, where no man is an island, it's where you're supposed to be. Whoa, oh, 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 oh. Whoa, oh, 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 oh. You keep heading inland, where no man is an island, come on home to me. Afraid of your convictions, they said the land will change you. Steady your confession, your course make no corrections. When you are a stranger, hold your tongue and wager that love will set you free. Till it sets you free. Whoa, oh, oh, oh. Whoa, oh, oh, oh. You keep hucking inland, where no man is an island, come on home to me. Just follow your desires. Oh, leave it all, you'll leave it all. Just burn it in the fire of everything you once knew, everyone that knew you. Remove the shoes you came on, feel the earth you're made from. Pack up all your questions, just keep heading inland. Come on home to me. Yeah, come on home to me. Oh, 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 oh. Whoa, oh, oh, oh. You keep walking inland, where no man is an island. Come on home to me. Whoa, oh. Whoa, oh, 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 oh. Yeah, you keep walking inland, where no man is an island. Come on home to me. Come on home to me. Come on home to me. Yeah. Come on home to me.
For the meditation today, I want to reintroduce one. I'm pretty sure I've done this somewhere in the past. This is one that is widely used in the field of meditation, and it's really good. So I just want you to sit back, relax, get yourself in a position where you can have your feet on the floor, where you can breathe easily, and take a couple deep breaths just to kind of cleanse yourself of whatever you're hanging on to and become more fully present. And close your eyes if you haven't already. Let's just be in the moment together. As you breathe deeply in and out, Check in with your body. Where do you have aches and pains? Just acknowledge them. And I find it helpful as I exhale just to release the tension in those parts of your body, in your face, in your shoulders, your back. Just a way of acknowledging that they're there, but then letting it go. Do the same with whatever issues are on your mind, your task lists, whatever that might be. Just be aware of them, and as you exhale, just let them go. They're going to be with you later today. But right now, we want to be together in this moment. And you may be dealing with some emotional things, stressors especially, who knows. It could be wonderful things, joyous things, or they could be really painful things, whatever they are. Just acknowledge them and let them go with your exhale. I'm going to give you a series of phrases that I invite you to say silently to yourself as you continue your breathing. And just incorporate these into your breath cycle and own them. Consider each word as you say them, and may they become your own words. So just silently repeat these after me. May I be happy. May I be safe. May I be healthy. May I be at peace. Now I'd like you to picture somebody in your mind that you care about a lot, somebody that you love. It may be a family member, it may be a friend, and just have them in your mind and repeat these words after me silently, as if you're saying them to them. May you be happy. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be at peace. And now I'd like you to picture somebody you don't care for a whole lot. It could be somebody who's wounded you, who's offended you. Could be some politician you don't like. You don't even have to be close to them. But I invite you to say these words after me to them, realizing these are statements of peace. May you be happy. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be at peace. And finally, knowing that we are all connected in ways that we don't even understand, but we are. We are connected as fellow inhabitants of this planet. We are connected as each of us made in the image of God, meaning we all have inherent value and our roots are the same. This is a prayer or words, a change the phrase that will help foster our sense of community, our beloved community. So repeat after me and consider yourself, your loved ones, the people you don't care for so much, and people who are very far away from you don't even know. Repeat these words silently with me to them. May we be happy. May we be safe. May we be healthy. May we be at peace. Amen.
Good morning, Crosswalkers. Brian here. I hope you haven't forgotten me already. It's good to be in these walls, although it's not the same with nobody here. But God's here. That's the main thing. And we will all be back together one fine day. Take a moment to remember who God is and who I am. There you go, lifting my load again. Take a moment to remember who God is and who I am. There you go, lifting my load again. Take a moment to remember who God is and who I am. There you go, lifting my load again. There you go, lifting my load again. No longer am I held by the yoke of this world. Come up under the yoke of Jesus. His yoke is easy, his burden is so light. No longer am I held by the yoke of this world. Come up under the yoke of Jesus. His yoke is easy, his burden is so light. His yoke is easy, his burden is so light. You're lifting my load. 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 No longer am I held by the yoke of this world. Come up under the yoke of Jesus. His yoke is easy, his burden is so light. No longer am I held by the yoke of this world. Come up under the yoke of Jesus. His yoke is easy, his burden is so light. His yoke is easy, his burden is so light. His yoke is easy, his burden is so light. Your love carries, your love carries me through. Your love carries, your love carries me through. Your love carries, your love carries me through. Your love carries me through. Amen to that.
I have a confession to make. I have sinned. A lot. And at the time, the sins I'm thinking about right now, I honestly didn't recognize them as sins. And the reason I didn't recognize it is because everybody was doing it. I was born in 1970. Grew up in the 70s. By the time I was in high school, junior high and high school, we're into the 80s. And times were different back then. Every generation seems to, hopefully, mature, get a little smarter, get a little better. But I got to tell you that I looking back, I'm embarrassed by some of my sins. Yes, sin, this word, sometimes has all kinds of really bad connotations to it, like we're pissing God off or something like that, things that we do wrong that are going to exact God's judgment in some way. And sometimes that definition is okay, but sometimes it doesn't quite help us much because it just seems like, some arbitrary list of do's and don'ts that may not connect with us, and we may not even understand it or agree with it. So one person, one author, a theologian, he defines sin as this: the culpable disturbance of shalom. That's a mouthful. The culpable disturbance of shalom. Culpable means responsible for. So what I'm saying is that in my sins, and I'm thinking specifically about times in the 80s, but they didn't end in the 80s, unfortunately. But I'm thinking about things that I was responsible for, things that I did that I was responsible for. And the thing I was responsible for was disturbing shalom. And remember, shalom isn't just this surface level peace. It's not simply the absence of conflict. That's a shallow rendering of peace, which really is just one level of it. But the fullness of what this Hebrew word shalom means is this deep well-being, this wholeness, this holistic health, where there's harmony, both inside of us in an intrapersonal way and between us in an interpersonal way. True shalom, which is sort of the marker of the kingdom of God that Jesus talked about, is where everybody experiences the beauty, the depths of all that God is, of all who God is, without exception. And everybody experiences it equally. What I'm trying to tell you is that when I was coming of age, I disturbed that reality. I was in the way of that reality for a wide range of people. And I hate it. What am I talking about? I'm talking about my mouth. I'm talking about the things that I said, which again, were culturally acceptable. It was the way people talked. It's the way we talked about. It's the way we joked. It's the way we made references. But just because everybody was doing it, it didn't make it any less harmful. It didn't make it any less sinful. Some of the things that I'm guilty of, just so that you know, and some of these things I was more pronounced with than others. Some things were more attitudes in my heart, in my mind, about how I thought about people out of fear or otherness or what have you. Some of the things came right out of my mouth. Some things more in terms of attitude than words that I said, because my parents raised me not to say some things out loud. But on issues of race, out of my fear, out of my ignorance, had attitudes about people that didn't look like me. And sometimes we think, well, nothing really came out of your mouth, so what difference does it make? I know that's not true. I know that my fear and that some things that I struggled with in my ignorance kept me from being a better neighbor to people who didn't look like me. Fear got in the way. I know that, oh my goodness, back in the 80s, and certainly before and even after, but thankfully it's not nearly as horrific now. But anything to do with homosexuality, LGBTQ stuff, back then it was open season. If you were gay and people knew it, man, God save you. because it was rough. You wanted to emasculate a guy, you called him gay, or many other slang terms for it. That's a way you cut them down immediately. And if you happen to be gay, like I said, oh man, I don't know how. I mean, I can't imagine the weight that burden of being different and being called out for it and harassed. Can't imagine. I sinned in the language I used to cut down friends and enemies with slurs that were directly related to homophobic kinds of sensibilities. And I'm sorry. I know that back in that day, sexism was still alive and well, and I know that I made remarks and joked along lines that perpetuated sexism and kept women less than men. Jokes that sometimes they're blonde jokes, that was pretty popular back in the day. Sometimes they were just jokes to make men stronger and better and more successful in whatever way we may have done that. Gratefully, I lived in a pretty progressive town and a school that was really quite egalitarian. In fact, the women in the school generally, there were more academic rock stars in our school that were women than men. And so there was quite a strong sense of egalitarianism in our school, and I'm so grateful for that. And yet, even in that context, it was there. And I don't feel good about that. I don't feel good about the double standard that was there. I know that in my school, xenophobia was a reality. Most of us in my high school were white. We had some diversity, but not a lot. We had some Asian Americans in our school, but not a lot. We had a few Middle Eastern students in our school, but not a lot. Very few Latinx students. Very few African Americans in our school. And we were a suburb of Lansing, Michigan. And if you know anything about Lansing, Michigan, Lansing itself is very diverse, heavy African American population. And yet, literally, I think my freshman year of high school, we may have had two in our school of 1,000 or whatever it was. I think it was more, maybe 1,500 or something like that. Two. And I know that statements of the other that belittled people, if they were immigrants or from another nationality or another ethnicity, I know that the statements were there. You know, I had a friend, a good friend, that I acted with because I was into theater stuff. I didn't even know that her heritage was Iranian. I had no idea until, I mean, maybe I knew, maybe I'd heard about it, but I didn't know. It did not register with me at all. I didn't know it was there a thing until deep into adulthood. And now she's an award-winning playwright and actress who writes about xenophobia toward Iranian people. I mean, wow. And the fact that I had no idea and that her ethnicity and background was not celebrated speaks volumes. I don't feel good about that. I know, oh man, I know that back in the day, people who also didn't get around the way everybody else did, maybe they had physical disabilities, maybe they had mental disabilities or what have you, stuff they were born with, things that happened to them in life. Man, another open season. And I know that they were belittled. I know they were mocked. I know they were treated as less than, and I know some of the disparaging words that were said about them came out of my mouth. And I feel terrible about that. Again, it was popularized. It was part of our culture. I'm not excusing myself. because it's not right. It was sin. The culpable disturbance of shalom. There's no other way around it. This is sort of related to LGBTQ, but man, God forbid if you were trans back in the day, you'd be asking for a beating. And I don't remember. I don't remember if there was somebody in our high school that may have been or may have been teetering on it. But I know what would have happened if they would have been. It would have been so hard for them. And I know that even today, with this community of us in our neck of the woods and globally, I know that they are still easy targets because we don't understand, we can't relate, we see them as other, we fear them, and they are still the brunt of many jokes. My friends, that's sin. That is the culpable disturbance of shalom. Now, after college, I went to seminary. I went to college in a small town in Kansas at a small university where all of this stuff was just as alive as it ever could have been. But the higher you go in academics, usually the softer that stuff gets. Usually with education, there comes some exposure to other ways of thinking, at least hopefully. And so it wasn't as pronounced, at least not publicly, in college. By the time I went to seminary, the idea of political correctness started to really come to the fore. Some of you are cringing already, thinking of political correctness and this PC stuff and all the stuff that came to represent. And honestly, in seminary, I could not understand what the big deal was. One of the issues had to do with inclusive language, which had to do with any time you came across a word that could be non-gender specific, like most translations just say he, but it really should be he or she. There were new translations of the Bible coming out that just simply put it out there. And if it was gender inclusive, the translation just gave insight into that. And we were forced to use, how ridiculous, we were forced to use inclusive language in seminary in our academic writing. And we got dinged if we didn't. If we used exclusively male pronouns for God, we got nailed for it. And there was all kinds of backlash, mainly from guys, about using inclusive language. And, you know, I grew up with strong women in my household, and I heard that, and I was just like, what's the deal here, man? I mean, it's academically correct, and it's kind. Why wouldn't we be kind to people? That time I didn't realize how many other things were coming out of my mouth and how many other attitudes I held and beliefs that I held that were still perpetuating many other forms of isms and keeping those things alive. And it's only as I've grown older and hopefully a little wiser and fell into my own crap that I've recognized that we've got a problem here, and that problem is sin, and that sin is the culpable disturbance of shalom. I am responsible for getting in the way of deep peace, getting in the way of holistic wellness, getting in the way of harmony between people. And I need to own that, and I do. There's a famous hymn writer and theologian named Frederick William Faber. Some of you grew up in church. We only do a handful of hymns anymore at CrossWalk as we use more contemporary stuff, but some of you who grew up in the church may remember the hymn, Faith of Our Fathers. Well, this guy, Frederick William Faber, wrote that, and he had a lot of quotable things, but this is one of the things I came across recently, which is really good. And it happened to be in a secular meditation app that he was quoted. So I thought that was cool. He said, "A single act of kindness throws out roots in all directions, and the roots spring up and make new trees. The greatest work that kindness does to others is that it makes them kind themselves." So good and so true. You know, I'm probably going to make some of you uncomfortable today because I'm talking about things that I think our culture is guilty of. I know our politicians are certainly guilty of what's coming out of their mouth as not being incredibly kind. And it was certainly true leading up to the election, and it's still true after the election, and it will be true for a very long time. And shame on them. Clean it up. But what I want to tell you, hopefully what is compelling to you, is that it's not about your political persuasion. It's not, at least on the surface, not about the other person that we're talking about. It's who we say we are as Jesus followers. The Apostle Paul, who had a mouth on him, and if you had the real translation of some of his letters, you would know just what a mouth he had on him, but we've softened it up because we don't want to offend anybody. But he used some very coarse language in some of his letters that even I would probably not use. And this is what he has to say. He wrote 2 letters right about the same time in neighboring communities, neighboring meaning within 50 miles or so apart, which meant that they were a universe away from each other back in the day. But this is one of the things that he said in terms of what it means to be a Jesus follower. He said, "Watch the way you talk. Let nothing foul or dirty come out of your mouth. Say only what helps, each word a gift." He kind of wraps up this particular chunk of his letter saying this: "Make a clean break with all cutting, backbiting, profane talk. Be gentle with one another, sensitive. Forgive one another as quickly and thoroughly as God in Christ forgave you. Watch what God does, and then you do it, like children who learn proper behavior from their parents. Mostly what God does is love you. Keep company with him and learn a life of love. Observe how Christ loved us. His love was not cautious, but extravagant. He didn't love in order to get something from us, but to give everything of himself to us. Love like that." That's so good. This stuff that we're talking about, the stuff that has been maligned as PC, no, it's just being Jesus. Because Jesus was about being kind with his words, and his followers understood that. And they held themselves and each other accountable when they didn't do it well. Later on, Paul continues, this is in that other letter to the Colossians. He says, "So, chosen by God for this new life of love, dress in the wardrobe God picked out for you: compassion, kindness, humility, quiet strength, discipline. Be even-tempered, content with second place, quick to forgive an offense. Forgive as quickly and completely as the Master forgave you. And regardless of what else you put on, wear love. It's your basic, all-purpose garment. Never be without it." Later on, he said, "Be gracious in your speech. The goal is to bring out the best in others in a conversation, not put them down, not cut them out." I wanted to talk into this post-election. This is sort of like a Go Be Jesus addendum, a little bonus session from Go Be Jesus stuff, because I think this is a really important thing for us to talk about and to think about how we talk about everything. I think we have a problem in our country. I think we've become divided, and it partly has to do with how we speak about each other. And I said a moment ago that it's not about them, about why we speak, and that's kind of true. There's a reality that what guides our lives as Jesus followers, as Christian people, we're supposed to be little Christ, imitators of Jesus, is that is our true north. Our behavior, our ethic, our morality, the way we treat all people is based on the model of Jesus, period. It's not about Republican, it's not about Democrat, it's not about American, it's about Jesus. How are we going to go be Jesus? That's the point. That's our true north. But you know what? It is about the other person as well. Because within the Christian way of thinking, and Jesus was so good at this, it got him killed when he did stuff like I'm doing today, calling stuff out. It got him killed because he was pushing on held beliefs and ways of thinking. But Jesus modeled what it looked like to be inclusive. He was radically inclusive. He went to people who were told that they were worthless, that they were judged by God, and he embraced them. People from other ethnic groups, he embraced them. People who found themselves caught up in sin of all flavors, he embraced them. People who were traitors to their country, he embraced them. This is who Jesus was. And you know what? He did it partly because it's who he was, but he also did it because of who they were, that they were more than the labels that had been put on them. Because every human being around the world who has ever lived, according to the Jewish poem of creation that shows up at the very beginning of the Bible, all human beings, all human beings, all human beings are made in the image of God. And what that means is, it doesn't mean that we look like God. I hope God looks a lot better than I do. But what that means is that we are in the likeness of God. All of us, the same. That's the great power of it. There is inherent value in every living human being. And therefore, it is never appropriate to use our language to cut them down or to treat them as any less than that. Almost 2 years ago, I was a participant, and still am a participant, in cohort 1 of the first 5 Napa network. This was a group of a little over a dozen of us, different leaders and community people from Napa, who came together to really think about how we can better care for children in Napa County, because we know that the first 5 years of a child's life determines in a strong, strong way how the rest of their life is going to go. So if we can protect some things and make sure that shalom type things are present for children in those first 5 years, it's going to make a remarkable difference for the rest of their lives, and it's going to make our entire community better. Well, some of those things have to do with, all right, are some of our kids food insecure? Are they getting good education? Do they have good health care? These kinds of things. Are they getting help with language if language is an issue? And are they included? Are they treated with respect? Well, a year after cohort 1 got through, cohort 2 started up. And some members of cohort 2 with First 5 Network, Napa Network, came together with a really interesting idea. And I learned about this a little bit ago and was asked if this is something that CrossWalk might want to promote. And as soon as I read it and saw it, I was like, yes, this is absolutely in line with what it means to go be Jesus. So they have this idea, which I'm going to let them talk about, but it's a twofold idea. One idea is to just simply put out a yard sign that says you're going to watch your mouth, you're going to watch your attitudes, and you're going to protect other people, because that's a Jesus thing to do. And it creates harmony in ourselves. It is a kindness that grows and changes us and allows new trees to be born and grow. I don't know if that's quite the right word, but you get what I'm saying. But with the yard sign comes a commitment to live up to those things. And the commitment I'm going to have here on the screen, you can see it's called the Napa Strong Enough thing. That's what the sign says. Napa Strong Enough to stand up to racism, homophobia, sexism, xenophobia, ableism, and transphobia. And then the commitments that you make have to do with committing to what it means to actually live into that with what we speak, how we interrupt talk when we hear these things being said, how we educate ourselves and appreciate differences among us so that we become more mature in our understanding, that we're not stuck in ignorance, but we actually know some things about what we're talking about. These are deeply Jesus things. And the reason I told on myself today about the sins I know that I've committed, and there's so many more I don't know, is to show you that we all have the issue. If you have been living in our culture at all, if you've not been living in a bubble your entire life, you have probably been guilty of this stuff. And it's time we say enough is enough. It's time we call it out for what it is, that it is sin. It is the culpable disturbance of shalom, and we are the ones who are responsible to varying degrees. And I'm asking you to own that today. I did a brief interview with some of the people from cohort 2 to find out a little bit more about where this idea came from, why they think it's important, and what difference it might make. Let's check it out now. Just tell me the story. I don't know who, JT, Stephen, and you guys are in cohort 2 together. Where did the idea come from? Why did you feel like it was important to do? Talk about it.
I think reached out to Jenny and Ann and asked them about an idea of having something visible throughout Napa that says anything from like no racism allowed and things like that. But initially, I wanted to have like actual like um, post, like stop sign post, something permanent. So yeah, so we came together and we met quite a few times and going back and forth with and it was a great learning experience for me.
And Rainbow Action Network last year, one of our goals for this year was to make business signs for businesses to be able to say we welcome all races, all religions, all countries of origin, all sexual orientations, whatever. So this felt like an amazing piece to add to it. So that's why we kind of made it a project of Rainbow Action Network too, as something that individuals can do. And the commitments piece felt really important. So we spent a lot of time on the commitments so that we could, it's one thing. And granted, like I say, it's easy to put a yard sign out, but we've had some people take a sign and then get nervous and not put the sign out. So I think just putting the sign out is a step and it's something. And the commitments are meant to remind people that with that sign, every time you see that sign, remember that you're committing to do these things too, which helps me, even like just me putting, and I'm already doing a lot of this stuff, but just like seeing my sign, my girls see my sign, and every morning they say Mama's sign when they see it in somebody else's yard. And it reminds me like how important all of this is and that we're all role models in the community now. Like we're role modeling this. We're strong enough to role model being anti-racist and, pro-human and all of it. It feels especially important right now. Yeah.
I'll just add that, I'll sort of piggyback on Anne about the role model piece because through my work with teens, I've got teens of all races. I've got teens from other countries who have experienced xenophobia. I have teens who are, disabled. My son's girlfriend, and I have teens, who are in the LGBT community. We're all allies. So all of these things are really important commitments for me to make to show our teens that we're here for them and we support them. And the sad thing is that a lot of our teens can't put these signs at their house because their parents may not want them up there, but they're seeing us doing it. So we're those other people in the community that are safe and accepting and loving no matter what. So it's really important that even one sign, you don't know how many people are going to see it. Each sign is going to have many impressions. It's a ripple effect. So like JT, driving around town, every time I see one, I just get the chills, because I don't know who all has them. I don't know how far beyond us this reaches. And that's what's so beautiful about this work that we're doing.
Why do we need to be talking about this? I mean, let's just let things settle down. There's lots of tension in the air. Why do we need a Napa strong yard sign and pledges to things? It's not affecting me. So why do we need to bother with this?
I think two reasons. I think we can easily be complacent, complicit and just let it flow over, and then it'll circle back and just something would happen. And so if this is not done, we can start doing preventive work. I mean, we're kind of doing like prevention work, and we're actually responding as well. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's one reason. And then another reason, I mean, Napa is strong enough. I really feel like there's a lot of strength here and potential to really fight all of these things. And I think even, and I heard you, Jenny, say that even some of the parents don't agree. And even that, if they put so much power and strength to resist, I feel like if the education is there, and then they can turn around and use that same power and put it in places where it's really needed. And so I think those are kind of like the two reasons why this is necessary.
Once I learned silence is on the side of the oppressor, that quotation or remark really stuck with me, that being complacent is actually allowing the power structure to exist and not be called out. And so the signs or speaking up and saying, I'm not comfortable with that expression or that use of those terms, just helps everybody remain cognizant of what actually is going on around us.
And I'll just say back to my kids, one of my my teen council vice president, Kalea, was really, of course, involved in the protests, the Black Lives Matter movement, but she, from the beginning, was feeling nervous about what happens next. She's gotten some, criticism and been kind of a target. And she just said, but what next? What about when this goes away? Then it won't be important to people anymore. And so that probably, I think we had that conversation at the same time JT came to me and said, can we do something? I said, heck yeah, we've got to do something to continue this, and make this commitment to move forward and take action, not just making a commitment, but taking action.
Well, we talked a lot about some of the things that people in Napa say as a community to connect, and we say we're Napa strong when we're going through a crisis. And it felt important to acknowledge that racism and discrimination are also a crisis. And we need to be Napa strong around this too, not just around fires and around earthquakes. And we do so well around that. So let's be Napa strong enough. Let's take that mentality, that belief about ourselves, and keep it around this crisis too, and really do something about it as a community.
You bring up an important point, because I think the Napa is strong enough. Like we're strong enough to stand, to fight against the outcomes of fires and we that big earthquake and majority of the people who were severely impacted were people that we are speaking about, and I think this brings light to that as well. The racism and discrimination and even natural disasters and the
COVID
of it. So in COVID, yeah, exactly. And so this speaks to so many different things. And just like I said earlier, I think Napa is strong enough to do this work. So.
I wonder how the world might have been different if these kinds of signs and commitments and this kind of thinking were more present when I was in high school. Actually, they just weren't as well known yet. We're all in progress, or in process, I guess. And I think we are making progress. But I think there's a lot more room to go. And I'm wondering if you'll consider this idea, embracing this idea of making this pledge and putting this simple sign for all those reasons you just heard in front of your home, in your office, in front of your store if you're a business owner. I just wonder what kind of hope that's going to bring. I wonder if it just might be a good reminder for you and me as we go through our days to know this is something we're committed to and can be a part of. And I wonder what a difference it's going to make for us to become a more beloved community in Napa. So I hope you'll take me up on it. I hope you'll take them up on it. It's their idea. They're $10. You can either swing by the church, go online, give your $10, and swing by the church and pick it up, or let me know through an email that you want one. And if you get me the $10, we'll make sure one's even delivered to you. How about that? If you're that serious, then we will be serious with you and make sure you get one of these. So just let me know. info@crosswalknapa.org, and we'll make sure that we get back with you and secure one of these while they last. They don't have an unlimited supply, and we'll make this thing happen. And I hope you'll take it seriously, because I think it's something that can really make a huge difference in our world today, especially when there's so much division. Let's not be a part of that any longer. So may you choose to recognize your sin and choose to stop. May you recognize ways to do the opposite of getting in the way of the kingdom of God, which this is a part of. May you choose to join God in creating a world where shalom becomes more and more the source of life and the standard with which we measure our attitude, behavior, and policy. May it be so. The Lord's Prayer that we end with every week is a prayer that is right aligned with that. Let's say it together, and may the words be our words as we pray the Lord's Prayer now. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Have a great week.